my gosh! Look at this thing! It's rotating.
The truth is out there. Well, actually, it might be. In January 2021, 700 declassified CIA files were dumped on a public archive called the Black Vault. And it reads like sci-fi. From a sighting of a fiery sphere in a Russian town to an unidentifiable flying craft in Azerbaijan. But of the millions of official and unofficial UFO sightings reported around the world, it's the reports that come from highly respected civilian and military pilots that are the most difficult to explain. In 2004, US Navy fighter jet pilots operating from the USS Nimitz aircraft carrier filmed UFOs prowling the skies off San Diego.
We're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west.
The leaking of this jaw-dropping footage, along with 2 further sightings by pilots in 2015,
Oh my gosh!
forced the Pentagon to officially confirm their authenticity.
Where you've got something that was taken from a military aircraft with forward-looking infrared cameras or whatever, it's authentic.
And in 2013, a US Customs patrol plane captured a truly remarkable UFO on its cockpit camera.
It shows an object traveling pretty fast, very low, over the land, and then over the sea. And a couple of really, really bizarre things happen. This object at one point goes into the ocean and then comes out again. At one point it appears to split into 2. Unidentified. That is exactly the same conclusion with regard to the Nimitz sighting. Unidentified.
When Top Gun pilots tangle with UFOs, the world sits up and listens. But it's not just military personnel who are encountering mysterious objects in the clouds. It's also highly trained commercial pilots. And one of the most extraordinary sightings took place very close to home, off the west coast of Ireland, in November 2018. British Airways flight BA94 was en route from Montreal, Canada to London Heathrow. 9 hours into an uneventful Atlantic crossing, something inexplicable happened. Out of the cockpit window, the pilots noticed a strange bright orb streaking across the dawn sky. So she made contact with Shannon Air Traffic Control, and this is a real-time recording of that conversation.
Any military traffic you got right now?
There's nothing showing on either primary or secondary.
Okay, it was moving so fast, in fact, we can no longer see it, but yes, thank you.
Alongside you?
Just get to come up on our left-hand side and then rapidly veer to the north. Being so bright light and then it just disappeared at a very high speed. We were just wondering. We didn't think it was a likely collision course, we were just wondering what that could have been.
The speed was astronomical.
A second witness, a Norwegian airline pilot, had also seen something strange.
Appeared to be multiple objects following the same sort of trajectory, but very bright where we were.
And then a third pilot, aboard Virgin Flight 76, reported the same thing.
Also saw that in our 11 o'clock position. Saw 2 bright lights, 11 o'clock, seem to back over to the right and then climb away at speed, at least from our perspective.
Okay, just so you know that other aircraft in the air have also reported the same thing, so we're going to have a look and see.
Glad it wasn't just me? No, yeah, very interesting, that one.
Clearly something very unusual happened in the sky over Ireland in November 2018. This unique UFO encounter, witnessed by seasoned pilots, is one of the most credible mysteries of the modern age. What did the pilots really see that November morning? And are we ready to discover the truth? Sarah, pilots, not just one pilot, but two pilots and other pilots backing them up, more witnesses.
No, I will agree with you on this. This is really intriguing. The fact that pilots spend their life in the sky, they know what's up there. So if they're saying they spotted something unusual, we need to listen to that.
And it wasn't pitch black either. It was 6:47 a.m, November the 9th. So that would have been sort of like, daylight was about 7:13, so it would have been sort of twilighty.
Yeah, so you've got our first almost daytime UFO sighting from the air.
OK, how do we dig deeper?
Well, there's actually an organisation called NARCAP where pilots can report all these kinds of unusual sightings in the sky. And we're going to speak to a guy called Ted Rowe, who's the Director of Investigations at NARCAP.
Ted, we're investigating some mysterious sightings above the west coast of Ireland. Can you tell us what you know about these recordings and these sightings?
Several commercial aircraft observed unusual lights over Ireland while they were inbound to Heathrow. The British Airways aircraft said it passed close by them before veering away to the north. The objects were described as moving very, very quickly. Faster than the airliners, which were probably doing around 500 miles an hour. So there's some questions we have about this particular incident. It's not clear cut.
And in terms of this incident, did the Irish Aviation Authority investigate this?
That's my understanding.
They did. So there is an investigation which has been conducted.
It's my understanding that the investigation is still ongoing.
Ted, what do you think it could possibly be?
Well, at this point, I would say it's a toss-up between incoming space junk, falling debris, and possibly a UAP. We need to resolve whether it changed directions or climbed away from the aircraft. If it did either of those two things, then it can't be space junk.
Well, pilots would know the rules of flight, so surely for them to make a report, they must have seen something that wasn't following the rules.
That's right. That's right. Whether pilots know what they saw or not, I find them to be pretty good observers. I've never had a pilot come to me and tell me that he knew what he saw. He told me what he saw. Sometimes we came up with unidentified. Sometimes we came up with misidentifications of human activity.
And how unusual is it for pilots to report seeing things like this?
It's not unusual. But I will tell you that we get more reports when pilots retire. It's one of the first things they do sometimes, but oftentimes they won't do it while they're employed.
OK, thank you for that, Ted. Great to talk to you.
Thank you, Ted.
Let me know if you need anything.
Thank you.
OK,
okay, take care.
Bye, Ted.
Well, there you go, Sarah. There's a lot of things we can rule out. We can rule out meteors.
Can we?
Yeah.
Can we?
Meteors don't fall.
But he also said pilots can sometimes be wrong. We only had one account where it's veering upwards, so I'm still on the fence with meteors.
Well, space junk doesn't fall up.
But we still don't know the angles. We still don't have enough information, in my opinion. But it's so intriguing.
If I saw a UFO, I'd be telling everyone. I'd be shouting it from the rooftops. What I don't understand is why pilots are so reluctant to share this information.
Well, first of all, I'm surprised you haven't seen a UFO, but I have got just the man for you. His name can't be revealed. We're going to call him Simon, and he's actually a former radar operator with NATO, and he can tell us more about this.
Simon, why can't you reveal your identity?
Well, the military is not very keen on people that reveal information about unidentified objects.
Being an air traffic controller for NATO, you must be privy to quite a few secrets.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Coming up. You're reckoning
That is a plane. Look at the shape of it. Oh, hang on,
to
is
me
it
it
this
looks
over
like
here? There, yeah.
here.
That's something we can't explain.
And Simon gives us some astonishing information about what we're not being told. Well, I mean, if the evidence pointing to what you're saying is pointing to, it's mind-boggling.
I'm interested in the truth. I'm not in the cover-up.
We're investigating a major UFO sighting off the west coast of Ireland in November 2018. When pilots from 3 different airlines all reported the appearance of strange craft in the sky. moving at speeds and trajectories never seen before.
It's to come up on our left-hand side and then rapidly veer to the north, beautiful bright light, and then it just disappeared at a very high speed. We were just wondering. We didn't think it was a likely collision course, we're just wondering what that could have been.
The speed was astronomical.
And we're about to find out from an ex-NATO radar operator who's agreed to speak on condition of anonymity, why cases like this are often kept secret by the authorities.
What information do you have about unidentified objects?
Well, there has of course been situations with almost mid-air collisions with the UFO in the past. And this is not something the government wants to reveal.
So is this why pilots are so afraid to come forward, because they feel intimidated by governments?
Not just by governments. The situation is that when a pilot reports a UFO, there is an investigation. So that could mean he's been tested on drugs, alcohol use, or psychological problems, and that could lead to being fired from the airline.
So if a pilot was to see something in the sky, he would be reluctant, in your opinion, to tell his bosses that he'd seen it?
Just too dangerous for them, because either they will be ridiculed or it will have consequences for their job.
In your opinion, are there alien beings flying our skies?
Officially, you don't talk about those kind of stuff, because the general rule is that UFOs do not exist, and when they exist, you do not talk about it. Yes, I think they exist. They must exist. I mean, we're not alone in the universe, and I'm sure that they visit us.
What motivates you to come forward? Surely you're risking yourself by speaking to us.
I'm interested in the truth. I'm not interested in the cover-up.
Simon, you say you're looking for the truth, but it's hard to find that truth when pilots won't talk about the sightings and they're also being suppressed by governments. Where do we go? How do we establish what's fact and what's fiction?
First of all, there is no reason for those pilots to lie. There are generals, there are colonels, high brass. They know about the UFOs, but they want to talk about it because of the consequences. But when they're on the dying bed, for example, there was an American military high staff Pentagon colonel, I think it was, he started talking on his deathbed. So the moment there are no consequences anymore for those people, they will come forward and talk about it, but not as long as they live.
Are you putting yourself at risk? You're essentially a whistleblower.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, a couple of years ago, I was working on the forum, and we were approached by someone, an American, and who said that it was not wise for us to continue. The government is definitely interested in looking into UFOs, and especially following the people that are interested in UFOs.
Well, I mean, if the evidence pointing to what you're saying is pointing to, I think it's mind-boggling, mind-blowing.
We can agree on that.
Simon, thanks for talking to us. Stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's been fascinating.
All right.
Well, there you go, Sarah. According to Simon, we've got shadowy organisations using fear and suppression to stop pilots calling in these incidents, to keep Pentagon generals quiet until their dying day.
It's quite frightening as well, and the fact that he's potentially risking his life to speak to us, that's chilling. What is going on that needs to be covered up?
Actual UFO there, mate. There's a UFO.
UFO sightings have spiked dramatically over the last 12 months. And in cloudless skies, no one is better placed to have a close encounter with an alien craft than a pilot. But we have uncovered a culture of fear and suspicion around the reporting of these sightings, which suggests an untold number are going unreported or may have been covered up. It makes the incident that took place off the Irish coast in November 2018 all the more compelling. The pilots of multiple passenger planes heading to London Heathrow were so shocked and so convinced by what they'd seen from their cockpit windows that they all called it in to air traffic control.
The BA pilot says we saw bright lights and then it just disappeared at a very high speed. And then the Virgin pilot comes on and backs him up.
Also saw that in our 11 o'clock position. Saw two bright lights, 11 o'clock, seem to back over to the right and then climb away at speed, at least from our perspective.
So, that's unusual.
Pilots are credible witnesses because they spend their whole life in the skies. They know what's unusual up there. So if they're saying, this is something I can't explain, and then you've got people backing them up, that's huge.
But what makes this sighting off the west coast of Ireland in 2018 even more extraordinary is that it was not a one-off. In fact, it was just the beginning.
Ireland has become a UFO hotspot. Last year, 105 UFO sightings were reported to Irish authorities.
And it's not just pilots seeing these anomalous objects. Ordinary people are capturing an increasing number of mysterious sightings on their mobile phones. And we've managed to get hold of video evidence of some of the most recent examples.
Now, the first one is Annalong, County Down.
Right.
And this is strange, Sarah. Is it a disc? Is it an orb?
It's almost, look, see, the bird went past and you can see that's a solid object, whereas this is almost opaque.
Are you saying it's a balloon?
Potentially, but it's moving rather fast.
It's moving really quickly. If that was a balloon, it wouldn't move that quickly.
It depends on the wind speed of the day.
Oh, true, I
Yeah.
suppose.
And it's the fact it's slightly opaque. That's what, it makes me curious.
Okay, let's go to Belfast now.
Okay,
Now look at that. This,
it's a plane.
you're reckoning
That
that's
is a plane. Look at the shape of it. Oh, hang on,
Well, to
is
me,
it
it
this
looks like
over
a-
here? Look, that's a plane.
This,
No,
have a
look at this though.
Yeah, that's a plane, and that's travelling so much quicker than it. Can we just go back a minute? Just go back. There you go. Yeah, so we got that there,
Yep, plane.
which I think looks like a plane.
Agreed.
But that doesn't look like that. Look.
But then
Okay.
if you go slightly forward, wait. There.
There.
yeah.
Here. There.
That's something we can't explain.
I'm confused now. As far as I'm concerned, we can't explain any of it.
But it's the fact that multiple people are seeing unusual things in Ireland.
Okay, where do we go now? How do we continue with our investigation?
And how do we begin to explain this sudden rush of UFO sightings in Ireland?
So I've got someone who can potentially help us with these videos. His name is Chris McMurray. He's from the Northern Ireland UFO Society and he spent years investigating these mass sightings. Chris, can you tell us more about these recent videos that we've been watching?
Yeah, we'll start with the one in Annalong, which was seen on the 8th of July, 2020. Now that is the most surprising video that we've seen. There was no sound from it. There's no flight records to say that any aircraft was in the air in that area at that time. So that definitely does remain unexplained. The Belfast video, we initially thought it was a transatlantic airliner or an aircraft taking off from Belfast City Airport.
That's what Sarah thinks.
Yeah, however, we've looked into that. We've looked at historical flight records, and the only aircraft that was nearby in the vicinity within the next 30 miles or so was an aircraft taxiing at a different airport. It could be maybe a military aircraft. The only time I'm aware that they turn off their transponders is if they're in operations. Now, flying over friendly airspace, they should be using their transponders. So can't completely rule it out, but it doesn't convince me that it was an aircraft.
Chris, have you heard the pilot audio from the BA pilot and the Virgin pilot seeing something above your skies?
I have heard it, yes.
What do you think they saw then?
Well, the mainstream theory behind it is that they saw a meteor entering into the atmosphere. I would contest that simply because it was seen for quite a long duration of time. And to say this to the pilot, which I think is quite insulting to the pilot of someone who's had that many years of experience flying, who will have seen things like this before, to say what you saw was a meteor breaking up in the sky.
Especially when he says he saw two bright lights that seemed to bank over to the right and then climb away at speed. You know, meteors don't bank to the right and climb, do they?
No, meteors don't take those weird turnings. There are instances where meteors would bounce off the Earth's atmosphere, but this was far too low for that to happen. It might be something different.
Okay, Chris, listen, it's been fascinating talking to you. Keep looking at the skies, kid.
Thank you, you too, man.
Okay. Okay, so let's look at what we've got. We've got the cockpit audio from British Airways and Virgin pilots talking to the air traffic control, saying they've seen something that's very, very strange in the sky. They don't know what it is.
Okay, it was moving so fast, in fact, you can no longer see it, but yes, thank you.
Now, these pilots are used to seeing things in the sky, so it's freaked them out.
We've got multiple other sightings on the ground in Ireland as well.
All over Ireland. Why is Ireland such a hotspot?
I don't know.
An estimated 5% of UFO sightings worldwide can't be explained.
David, that is the weirdest thing.
Is that?
But there's one European country that appears to attract more interstellar visitors than any other. Ireland has become a UFO hotspot. And one encounter stands out from the rest, a major sighting by multiple commercial pilots in November 2018.
I saw two bright lights at 11 o'clock seem to back over to the right and then climb away at speed, at least from our perspective.
Shannon Air Traffic Control received numerous reports of mysterious lights and unidentified craft shooting across the morning sky at 30,000 feet.
Appeared to be multiple objects following the same sort of trajectory, but very bright where we were.
Were extraterrestrials behind this extraordinary event? And is something bigger going on in Irish airspace?
The speed was astronomical.
We're leaving no stone unturned to get to the truth. Let's look at what we've got. We've got the cockpit audio from British Airways and Virgin pilots talking to the air traffic control, saying they've seen something that's very, very strange in the sky. They don't know what it is.
It was moving so fast, in fact, you can no longer see it, but yes.
Alongside you?
Get to come up on our left-hand side and then rapidly veer to the north.
And we've got really recent sightings in Belfast, County Down, County Meath. Something's going on in Ireland. Why is Ireland such a hotspot?
It could be multiple things, Craig. It could be hysteria. You know, you hear your neighbour seeing a UFO and then suddenly you're like, I can see something also. It could be the fact that people are just looking up more, clear skies, less light pollution. But I am curious about the pilots. That is certainly, as you say, credible witnesses, and they're up in the skies all the time. They know when they see something which is unusual.
The next logical step in our investigation is to compare the reports from the pilots over Ireland in November 2018 with similar sightings by pilots elsewhere in the world.
So I caught up with Nick Pope, former MOD investigator and UFO expert earlier, and he has more to say on this. In terms of sightings from pilots, we've got credible witnesses. There's numerous accounts of pilots seeing things that they can't explain, and these are people who are aware of the skies more than any other people. And there was one particular incident, a flight heading from the US in the year 2020 to Mexico, where they saw this unexplained object. Can you just talk us through that incident?
Well, this was an interesting case, but also, frankly, a disturbing case. The pilot and the first officer saw a strange light out of the cockpit, and their initial thought was that, oh look, there's a meteor. And then the thing just stopped.
It's like an orb, man. Look at that. Oh man, that is phenomenal, dude. I'm so glad you saw that. And you saw it drop out of the sky and just stop?
I thought it was a shooting star.
Dude, it's pulsing, man. Look at that. Oh, this is awesome.
It was almost as if it was tracking the aircraft. And at one point in this encounter, there was actually a beam of light that seemed to be shone from the UFO, whatever it was, towards the aircraft.
Oh man, look at that thing, dude.
And in your expert opinion, with your background working for the MOD investigating UFOs, what's your opinion on this incident?
It wasn't another aircraft, wasn't a meteor, and you're left with this uncomfortable feeling that there's something, but we're not quite sure what we're dealing with.
And in terms of sightings from pilots, again, this isn't the only case of unusual lights being seen in the night sky.
Yeah, in Chile, they have had a number of cases where they've had some very interesting sightings. In particular, there's a piece of film footage from a Navy helicopter that they spent, I think, 2 years looking at, and said, we have no conventional explanation for what we are seeing here.
So it was a naval helicopter in Chile in 2014 recorded something unexplained on camera.
Yes, and one of the other fascinating things about this is at one point you can see what looks to be almost like a vapor trail, a contrail. It looks as if the thing, some people have speculated that it's venting, I don't know, plasma or something, but something's coming off this thing. They went through everything. Were there any aircraft, helicopters in the area? Where the balloon launches? What about an astronomical or meteorological explanation? And just drew a complete blank.
What do you think that is, Sarah?
I think there's a lot of unknowns. But what's interesting to me is the shape. It looks similar to one of the videos we saw for Ireland. I don't know whether they're related or not, but it's that same orb-type shape.
Can I have a closer look at this?
Yeah.
It does look a bit like a Chinook helicopter.
But this is moving much, much slower than the other videos. I mean, the Chilean government investigated this thoroughly. They still don't know what it is. It appears to be venting something.
Yeah, is that like an exhaust fume or something?
I've never seen anything like that before.
I've never seen anything like it either.
And then it's separating, look.
Yeah. So do you think that might have been sort of an exhaust, like, so it's decided to fire itself towards the ground or something?
Or is it two separate objects? Has it split into two?
But look there now, you've got a cylinder and an orb.
I genuinely can't explain this.
Wow, that's just spooked me now. Okay, Sarah, you as a scientist, a renowned astrophysicist even, can you explain to me what's going on there?
I can't explain it. It's genuinely interesting. It's genuinely something I've never seen before. I can't give you the answer to what's going on in that video.
Okay. We're being sidetracked though. Let's get back to our main case. We've got credible witnesses, pilots, talking in the air to air traffic control. We've got multiple sightings in multiple venues, Belfast, County Down, County Meath. How do we move this investigation forward?
Well, I think we need to treat them as separate events because what happened in Ireland might not be related to what's happened in Chile. But it's certainly interesting. It's certainly a hotspot. I think we need to speak to someone else, and I've got the perfect person who can shed some light on this.
We're on a mission to uncover the truth about what commercial and military pilots are really seeing in our skies and reporting back as encounters with UFOs. And in particular, the extraordinary aerial encounter that took place in 2018 off the west coast of Ireland, when multiple commercial pilots reported sightings of unidentified flying objects. before we come to a verdict. Let's look at what we got here. We've got the cockpit audio of 3 separate pilots talking to air traffic control about seeing something very, very strange in the sky. The BA pilot radio's in. It was moving so fast, we saw bright lights. It disappeared at a very high speed.
Appeared to be multiple objects following the same sort of trajectory, but very bright from where we were.
A Virgin pilot says there are 2 bright lights, multiple objects, very bright. So they've all seen something very unusual in the sky.
So far, we've spoken to someone from NARCAP who deals with pilots and unusual sightings that they have in the sky. How unusual is it for pilots to report seeing things like this?
I will tell you that we get more reports when pilots retire.
We've spoken to a UFO expert, Simon, a former radar operator with NATO.
Just too dangerous for them. I'm interested in the truth. I'm not interested in the cover-up.
But despite the mounting evidence, Sarah wants to see if there's a plausible scientific explanation for this unprecedented series of UFO sightings.
I still want to explore this idea that it could be an astronomical phenomena. So we, Craig, are going to speak to an astronomer. His name is Dr. Eamon Ansborough.
What do you think's going on?
There were indeed multiple pilots in multiple aircraft linked into air traffic control at Shannon. And we're not dealing with one object here. There wasn't any trail behind them. And I thought, well, maybe it could be a meteor or fireballs. At the time, I think it was about a few days beforehand, the Torad meteor shower does have a characteristic which is a horizontal movement of meteors. But these objects that were seen by pilots don't resemble anything like meteors.
The pilot described it, Eamon, as changing direction. I mean, do meteors change direction?
No, meteors don't change direction, and they come straight down in a curve, so to speak, down to the horizon. I thought of other objects, possibly sprites. This would be a type of lightning, but going in the opposite direction, but in the upper stratosphere. But that doesn't fit either. Where these objects were seen was at 30,000 feet, more or less on the same level as the pilots.
But there have been cases with meteors where they actually go into the Earth's atmosphere, they don't get low enough, and then they skip out again. It's a rare astronomical phenomenon,
but
so
not
it does
that
happen.
low, Sarah, not at 30,000 feet.
The thing is, with something so extraordinary like this, we've got to look at all the more logical explanations.
Yes, I take your point there, Sarah. You're quite right. They would bounce off from the atmosphere, but at a very high altitude.
And it can't be space junk either, can it? Because space junk doesn't fly upwards either, does it?
Yeah, I think the problem is gravity. It's so low down that it doesn't make sense for it to go the opposite direction.
So what you're saying is that we can rule out space junk, space debris. We can potentially rule out the meteor. So in your opinion then, how unusual is this sighting from the cockpit of these aircraft?
This is fairly common.
It's common?
There's thousands of pilots over the last 70 or 80 years that are seeing these constructs, you know, cylindrical objects, triangular type objects. I decided to get computerized data of thousands and thousands of reports and started studying this. And one day we made a breakthrough. And sure enough, the model was showing that there was a pattern to it. There were cycles to it.
What was the pattern? What was the cycle, Eamon?
We thought it might be, you know, similar to what satellites do going around the Earth. But it wasn't making sense. And then one day we found out if we synchronized the orbits with the rotation of the Earth, lo and behold, it actually works. And it was testable. And the theory is that that is quite possible that we have a controlled autonomous surveillance of the Earth by these anomalous objects.
Wow, that's just spooked me now. We are being watched by a superior species. Is that what you're trying to say?
All I do know is that the constructs that people have been witnessing going back 140 years appear to be intelligent.
Hang on, it's a bold hypothesis, but there could be a more generic, less sexy reason for these cycles.
Well, they're quite precise, actually. So it's actually showing that we appear to have this, like a surveillance going on.
Wow. Dr. Eamon, it's been fantastic talking to you. You've certainly opened my eyes and you've freaked me out a little bit. And I think you freaked Sarah out as well.
Thank you so much, Eamon.
You're most welcome.
Well, there you go. You wanted science, you wanted data, and you just got it. And he thinks we're being watched.
There is some credibility in the idea that we could potentially be being watched. Now, bear with me. There is that potential that there are civilizations out there which are vastly more intelligent than us that just are watching us and don't want to communicate.
When I made the bold claim that, like, in a few decades' time, we'll find alien life forms, and you said, yeah, but they'll be microbial.
Yes, that's us finding them. This is different. This is them finding us.
Okay.
So within the next few decades, it's a case of when, not if, we will prove that we're not alone in the universe in terms of microbial life elsewhere in the solar system. But in terms of aliens, intelligent life beyond Earth, that could be tomorrow.
Yeah.
That could be 100 years from now. We just don't know.
In this investigation, we've amassed a wealth of never-before-heard expert testimony and secret revelations. But have we got enough to make a final decision on what it was the pilots really saw up in the skies over Ireland in November 2018? Let's have a look at the board. British Airways pilot, Virgin pilot, third pilot, all say they saw something very, very, very odd.
So perhaps this is something we haven't even dreamt of. Perhaps it is something beyond the imagination.
And then there's Ted from NARCAP, who says so many pilots have seen so many things, but they're afraid to come forward because of the ridicule and the stigma.
Whether pilots know what they saw or not, I find them to be pretty good observers. I've never had a pilot come to me and tell me that he knew what he saw. He told me what he saw.
Pilots spend more time in the sky than anyone else, so they're the people to know what's strange and what's more common, but at the same time, it could just be something natural that we haven't managed to explain yet.
No detail of this case has escaped our forensic examination. And now, finally, it's time to put our cards on the table. Do the mysteries of this incredible UFO sighting hold up under scientific scrutiny? Or should it be struck from the UFO files for good? What's your verdict?
I think this is very interesting. I'm gonna say it's not been solved yet.
Maybe I'm scared of being stigmatized. I believe in aliens, but I'm gonna have to say that the jury's out. This extraordinary case now joins the thousands of other impossible to dismiss sightings from around the world. The weight of evidence that UFOs exist is building at an ever-increasing pace. Hot off the press, another Pentagon authenticated sighting of an unidentified flying triangle has sparked a media frenzy. And a frustrated public, desperate for answers, are forcing the authorities slowly but surely to disclose their secrets. But for now, UFO hunting remains dangerous game. Always remember Simon, the radar operator, ex-NATO, who was so scared to come forward that we had to disguise his identity and change his name.
Are you putting yourself at risk? You're essentially a whistleblower.
Yeah, well, I don't know. We were approached by someone and who said that it was not wise for us to continue.
He says there are shadowy forces out there who know lots of things that we don't know, and they're scared to tell us because we'd be frightened to death.
I am curious about Simon, and why would the general on his deathbed at the Pentagon come out and say there is more stuff going on than we know about?